What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. We are finally here at the Code Geass collaboration set with Shadowverse. I'm so happy that we're going to get these new collab cards with Lelouch and all the other characters from Code Geass, one of my favorite animes. I feel like it's one of the best animes out there. If you have not watched Code Geass, I would recommend to watch it. If not, if the anime is not up your role or whatever it is, that's fine too. Alright, so let's figure out what cards came out in Abysscraft, because I believe in Abysscraft there's lots of different play styles to go through. You have the control way, where you can potentially hand control your opponent, or just keep surviving and healing and stuff until you can get to a point where you can just shotgun your opponent. Or, you can play the other version of it, which is the aggro archetype, where you can play little guys really fast and then deal damage to yourself so you can deal your opponent damage through burn damage, which is absolutely nice too. So let's figure out what are the new cards that came out in Abysscraft. Alright, before we get into the video, I want to thank you guys so much for voting. I know you only had like a couple of days to do it, but I was able to collect some data and see what you guys wanted to see on the first bit of spoilers. And when it comes to decks, I'll probably do another polls, but if you liked it, leave a comment below and say, hey, this is how I like to do things. Or, if I can switch to a different platform, you guys might be able to see it more. I'm not sure. But this is how we're going to be doing the different types of spoilers. So we're going to start with Abysscraft, then we're going to move on into Forestcraft, and then break off into Havencraft, and then do Dragoncraft in the fourth. So, halfway throughout the week we'll be done, and then throughout Swordcraft or Runecraft, I'll decide which ones we'll do first. But depending on how everyone voted, it seems Abysscraft is first. That's why we're doing Abysscraft today. And that's usually how it goes for when I do spoilers, is I do it in alphabetical order. So, it would have been Abysscraft and then Dragoncraft, but we're gonna let you guys decide how we do things, because I love that you guys are still here and watching my stuff, and I love you guys so much. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the video. All right, and the first card we have is Caster. He's a 3 cost, and he has a last words effect. So when he dies, you can use 2 play points to put this card back onto the field, which is pretty nice. But the only way you can do this is if he doesn't get banished. So if he's removed any other way, you can spend 2 play points to just put him back on the field. And it's a pretty nice bronze card. Next up, we have Demonic Drummer. So for 1, he has Ward. And then when he comes into play, you can spend 2 play points to search for a Demonic Drummer from your deck and put it onto the field. And then he has a last words effect to add 1 to your leader's health. Pretty interesting card, the fact that you can spend 1, and then if you have 3 play points in total, you can spend another 2 to go ahead and get another Demonic Drummer, thinning your deck out, play another one, and then at this point, if your opponent's not playing Havencraft or any sort of craft that's able to use neutral cards to banish something, then you can just recover 1 health through this guy. So if he dies at any point in time, you get 1 health. Alright, next up we have Demon Lord Ektar. For 7, as long as this card is on your field, all your Nightmare followers have Rush. And then when he comes into play, Necro Charge 10, if you have 10 cards in your cemetery, you choose up to 2 Nightmare followers with cost of 2 or less in your graveyard, you put them onto the field, and then all other followers get +1/+1. And then if you have Necro Charge 20, so 20 cards in your cemetery, they get +3/+3 instead. I don't know how often the Necrocharge 20 is going to be coming up, but I know for sure that Necrocharge 10 is going to be happening more often than not. And the fact that it's a 7 cost play points, this definitely just looks like a card that's going to be going into the control build. And the fact that you can just play it and then have that Necrocharge 10, you can choose 2 Nightmare followers and then play them from your graveyard, if they're 2 less, that is. And then everything on your field gets +1/+1. And the fact that you're playing those Nightmare followers and they have Rush, so they can swing at potential wards and stuff like that, it's just absolutely amazing. Alright, so next up we have your Rail. So she's a 2 cost, and as long as this card is on the field, all of your Venom, Fang, Medusa, and Sneth have Aura. And then when she comes into play, you put a Serpent into your EX area. Alright, we'll find out what a Serpent token looks like later on, but the fact that this is giving spoilers to what the other cards are, you have Venom, Fang, Medusa, and Sneth, so it looks like Serpents are going to be something, and the fact that you can just think of Medusa, you're thinking of Gorgons and snakes and stuff like that, so that's what we're going to be looking towards as a deck archetype. So let's go ahead and figure out what the next card is, so we can figure out what these Venom, Fang, Medusa, and Sneth cards are. Alright, next up we have Fenrir. For 4, you can evolve him for 1, and when this card receives damage during your turn, you choose an enemy follower and deal 3 damage to it. It's a pretty interesting card, the fact that during your turn, if this card were to receive any damage to like a quick spell or something like that, then you can deal 3 damage to any follower on the field, but I do not know when this will come up, or if this card's going to be good at any point, but it is still an interesting card. Let us figure out what the Evo does. Alright, looking at the Evo, it's not too special. It just, its stats went up by 1. And the fact that it has 6 defense is pretty nice, because if you know how we do things, if it sits around 5, it does something a little spicy, but if it's above 5, then it does something nice. But this card is kind of lackluster in terms of Evo and what it does. So we evolve it doesn't really do anything. It's just if this card receives damage during your turn. So if you swing into something and he doesn't die, you can just go ahead and deal with something else. So I can see where it comes up where you might be doing some pretty good removal from this in like the mid game, but I do not know how practical this card might be. All right, we got Frogbat. So for 2, you can evolve him by banishing 2 cards from your graveyard to evolve him. That's pretty interesting. Let's figure out what his Evo does. All right, so looking at Frogbat evolve, so this is a nice little combo that goes with Mini Soul Devil. So at the start of your end phase, add 1 to this card's defense and your leader's health. So let's say you ping yourself for 1 to go ahead and get Sanguine active for you. It's pretty nice that you have a card to go ahead and get that health back, and you can go ahead and increase the defense of this follower's defense. All right, and we have Grave Desecration, and so for 1, it's an amulet. So when it comes into play, you put the top 2 cards of your deck into your graveyard, and you can activate for 2 play points to engage this card and put it into the graveyard. You can choose an undead follower in your graveyard to put it into your hand. So by thinking off the top of my head, I don't think we have that many undead followers, but the fact that you're able to just go ahead and just mill 2 for 1, it's nice for those decks that go for Necrocharge. And if you're running an undead deck, you can go ahead on that next turn and engage this card, put it into your graveyard, go ahead and get something out of your graveyard and put it into your hand, making sure it's an undead card. And that's not bad in the later turns, or if you actually milled an undead on that first mill, go ahead and get something out so you can get some tempo going on. Alright, and we're looking at the first legendary. We have Howling Demon. So for 5, you can evolve him for 3, which is very expensive. But when he comes into play, you choose an enemy follower on the field and deal 4 damage to it. If Sanguine is active for you, you deal 8 damage instead. I'm just now noticing the guitar he has in his hand, and that is absolutely rad. But the real question I'm going to be asking is this card going to replace Soul Dealer? Because it does do 4 damage to something, but if Sanguine's active for you, it does 8. So let's see if this evolve is worth running this card in our deck, and let's see if this is a decent replacement for Soul Dealer. So looking at his Evo, he looks absolutely rad. So he has Storm, and then evolve. If Sanguine is active for you, you add 5 to your leader's health. Alright, so this is something to talk about. So there are definitely some gives and takes. So really, what do you want? Do you want Soul Dealer that has Ward? And you can potentially just go ahead and grab something, heal for whatever follower that you have that's removed, and whatever attack that they're doing, which is around 4, 3, or sometimes even 5. Or do you want to rock Howling Demon, which might be a pretty solid replacement. He is a little more expensive, but if you rock in the control version, I believe you can get away with it. And the fact that he has Storm, and then if Sanguine's active for you, so if you've dealt yourself damage at any point in time, you can just go ahead and add 5. So let's say I deal 1 to myself. Well, guess what? I just netted 4 from this card just for evolving. So I feel like that's a pretty interesting ability. Alright, so we're looking at Scorpius. He's a 2 cost, and I believe this is one of those Nightmare followers that might have Rush from getting from the graveyard. This is just looks like Nightmare Fuel, so I'm gonna assume it's a Nightmare follower. But he has Bane, and then when he attacks Strike, you deal 1 damage to all leaders. So I'm starting to see the combo between these cards. So we have Scorpius, he's a 2 cost. If you play the 7 cost, then this is a card that has Rush. And then you can swing as soon as he comes out into a follower, and the fact that he has Bane, he just goes ahead and gets rid of something. And then he has Strike to deal 1 damage to all leaders, and that includes yourself. So when you deal that 1 damage to yourself, your Sanguine is active. And then you can potentially play Howling Demon and then deal 8 damage to something. And then you can heal 5, so you can definitely net that 4, what I was talking about earlier. Alright, and we're finally seeing Sneth. No, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that name, but she's a 5 cost. You can evolve her for 1, but whenever a serpent comes into your field, you choose an enemy follower and deal 2 damage to it. And then when she comes into play, you put a serpent onto the field. So already for 5, you're going to be playing her and then getting a serpent and then dealing 2 damage to something. So let's figure out what her Evo does. Alright, and then we have Sneth evolve. So it still has the ability of whenever a serpent comes into your field, you choose an enemy follower and deal 2 damage to it. But also when you evolve her, you can put another serpent onto your field. It's a pretty cool ability. You're able to play a serpent with Sneth Evo the first time and deal 2 damage to something, and then you evolve where you play another serpent and do another 2 damage, so that's 4 in total. And then, you know, Sneth Evo's evolved, so she has rush, which is able to swing into an engaged follower in case, you know, something already survives past that 4, which is a pretty nice ability for the Medusa line. Alright, so this is a serpent token. It's not anything too crazy, but the fact that it's a 1 cost that you're spawning with, you know, Sneth Evo and then the other followers, and then sometimes, you know, having a 1 cost threat that can just get rid of anything off the field is just nice. Alright, so next up we have Trial of the Gorgon. So for 7, you search for a Venom, Fang, Medusa, Sneth Evo, and Rail from your deck, and you put them onto the field. This is a perfect card to run if you're running that Gorgon line, and it also helps with your ratios. So let's say if you want to go low on the Venom, Fang, Medusa, Sneth Evo, and Rail, whatever, if you're having a problem finding these cards, then if you rock either 1 or 2 of this and you see this before you see your other cards, probably unlikely, but you know, there's always a chance. You can just play this for 7, you can get all those cards and then put them onto the field, and you can go ahead and start running from there. Alright, so we have Venom, Fang, Medusa. Alright, so for 3, you can activate for 0 play points to put a serpent onto the field, and this effect can only be used once per turn. You can also use her for a quick/activate to engage this card and put 2 serpents to the graveyard, and you choose an enemy follower and destroy it. So I think this card just pairs up nicely with other cards. You put a serpent into the EX with your Rail, and then with Sneth Evo, you know, whenever you play a serpent, you deal 2 damage to something, and then Venom, Fang, Medusa literally just plays serpents for free. And then at any point, if you have 2 serpents on the field, you can just engage her and then destroy something on the field by getting rid of 2 serpents. So yes, your board's going to be quite full of cards, but of course you're going to be getting rid of them to generate some value through destruction on your opponent's side. So I feel like that's pretty fair. Now the hard part is keeping these cards on the field, because opponents are definitely going to be targeting cards like this. Alright, last but not least, we have Venomous Bite, and for 1, you put a serpent into your field, and if there's a Gorgon follower on your field, give the serpent rush and assail. Sorry if I didn't edit the part where it says assail, but direct attack means assail for us, and the fact that the serpent could just go ahead and attack something that's unengaged, which, you know, smart opponents are just going to leave their wards unengaged so they can go ahead and swing with them, like Ancient Elf. So if I have Medusa on the field and then I play Venomous Bite, you know, whenever I put that serpent onto the field and it checks for Medusa being on the field, oh yeah, my serpent now has rush and assail and it has bane, so I'm going to swing at something and it's going to be gone. So I feel like serpents are going to be very interesting to work with. I feel like I'm very excited to see what this deck can do. So yeah. Alright, and here are all the alternate cards that we're going to be getting for Abysscraft, and they come in the form of Lelouch. And we have Lelouch as the leader, which will be awesome to see. And then we have the 7 cost Nightmare Rush follower guy. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm not a card genie. I apologize. And then we have Grave Desecration as the 1 cost Amulet. Alright, like I said before, I am so very excited for this Code Geass set, and it's one of my favorite animes that I've watched so far. Very good story, very good characters, and I'm glad that my favorite card game is going to get a collaboration set with it. But alright guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. You don't know how much it means to me that you're still here and watching. Make sure you're safe in whatever you do tonight, and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
I gave you all my love, baby, my heart is cold when you're around. You warm it up, liquid gold, baby, yeah, you warm it up, liquid gold, baby, and my affection, all that paper you wasted. Take my love.